early.
Yoo-hoo!
Bring it in, bring it in. I'm talking like a football coach. Bring it in. Okay.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Prescott Unified School District Governing Board to order. Welcome to our guests. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. We need to approve the agenda. Oh, no, wait. I skipped the Pledge of Allegiance. Lily, my dear.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Now we need to approve the agenda. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? Could I get a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Read it.
I'll second.
Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Likewise, the minutes from our November 1 study and voting session, November 1 retreat and working meeting, and November 2nd study and voting meeting as presented. Any changes or corrections anyone has to the minutes? Could I get a motion for approval, please?
Motion to approve the minutes for the governing board retreat on November 1st and the regular study and voting session on November 2nd as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes from the governing board retreat of November 1 and the regular study and voting session meeting of November 2 as presented. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. All right. Now we have a guest here to give us some wonderful information. So, Joe?
We have Ellen Basher here tonight, and she's here on behalf of the city, and she also works for several other organizations, but she and her crew took the Community Nature Center that has been a huge part of Prescott for many years, was sort of born in the Prescott schools, then went to the city of Prescott. Ellen and her crew have brought it to life in a whole new way, and I think Ellen does that probably with whatever she does, but this is a very exciting presentation tonight. We do have Joe Baines and Tyler Goodman from the city with us also tonight, and they've got another item later on, but they're also very tied in with this partnership. This is a partnership, really this is a city organization that has been serving our PUSD and other kids, but largely our PUSD kids in a huge way. They were key during COVID. I think there's going to be a similar presentation to the City Council in the near future about this partnership, but this is one of the most vibrant things that I think is happening in PUSD right now, and you're about to see why. I can't even steal the thunder because this is a great presentation. So, Ellen Basher, we've got a video presentation from Ellen, and then she's here for Q&A afterwards. And Ellen, if you want to set that off in any other way, or you want us just to push play?
Push play.
Okay, it speaks for itself.
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Ellen Basher and I'm super excited to be here with you all to share a little bit about the Community Nature Center and this amazing partnership between Prescott Unified School District and the City of Prescott. Thank you all for having me this evening, and I look forward to sharing some of the joys that have happened in this last year and a half. So for those of you that don't know, the Community Nature Center has been a site of Prescott Unified School District learning since 1974. You can see some of the images of the historic cabin, and I'll give you a little bit of an outline of what that history has looked like. So in 1974, the district first purchased these 18 acres that are directly adjacent to Granite Mountain School and Abaya Judd. There's rumors this was originally to be a sports field, but quick examination of the property lets you know that there's only one thing that this could be, and a nature center among the tangles of boulders is the perfect choice. So in 1976, students in a workforce development course built the cabin there, and from 1975 all the way up to 1989, PUSD was operating a nature center for daily, weekly, monthly activities and programs for PUSD staff and students. And this is really exciting. My limited research, I have yet to find a nature center owned and operated by a school district in the Southwest prior to this. So I believe this may have been one of the first nature centers owned and operated by a school district in the Southwest, definitely in Arizona. So exciting to be a part of such a legacy of innovation for these students. In 1990, the Highland Center got their start at the Community Nature Center until moving to their current site. And then funding issues happened, grants dissipated and changed, and from 1996 till 2005, the Community Nature Center was relatively dormant. In 2006, in order to preserve this beautiful learning space, the city purchased these 18 acres and designated it an open space preserve. And then programming remained relatively quiet, although some upgrades were made to the site. And the space continued to be cared for by this gentleman here. And I want to take a minute and really acknowledge Henry Dahlberg, who is both one of the founding members and continued caretakers of this space, who has made so many incredible commitments and changes in this community. It's really an honor to continue in his footsteps in using this space and others to enrich community and student learning. In the words of Joe Howard, the Prescott Community Nature Center, with the vision of one of our finest environmental teachers, Henry Dahlberg, has been a place for generations to learn from. And that's what we want to continue here. So in 2020, the global pandemic came through, and the district and the city, everyone was looking for opportunities to make sure that folks stayed healthy, stayed safe, and could continue having enriching experiences in their day-to-day lives. And this is where these conversations started, and the development of the COVID Care program, which involved reviving the intergovernmental agreement between PUSD and the city, which created the shared campus models that continue to be the relationship we operate under with students and teachers to today. And starting in that 2020, the Park Ranger and AmeriCorps program providing those free experiential and outdoor learning programs. And again, that is the relationship and model that continues today. So first of all was COVID Care. As we all know, this is a program that the district created to provide services and opportunities, especially to the families and students with the highest need. And it was an honor for us as park rangers at the city to be able to support this goal and ensuring that equitable access to learning and well-being during this time. So on and off with the changes from distance learning to in-person learning, COVID Care was operated at the Community Nature Center from about August 2020 to February 2021. In full swing, we were looking at 8 to 3 every single day of the week. PUSD was providing Chromebooks and meals, transportation, and we were providing this Community Nature Center with Wi-Fi there, supplies for all the learning, the lessons, the adventures, and of course our park ranger staff combined with the PUSD's incredible staff and teachers. Thank you to them all for the difference they made during that time. And together, we were able to give these students not only a safe and healthy space to be, but daily outdoor exploration, science and engineering and math and the outdoors. We did art. We focused on our own social emotional well-being through teamwork and reflection and creativity, and of course an abundance of that healthy daily physical activity as well. Some of the incredible partners that stepped up to make COVID Care possible and never a long enough list to include everyone. But we saw GEM Environmental that was there every day, a scientific nonprofit in town. The Highland Center came out and taught lessons with us every Friday. Yavapai Community Health Services came and taught intermittent lessons. And of course, the Farm to School program at Pusd, we integrated those gardens as well. And thank you to Sarah for those creative lessons and activities too. A little glimpse at our schedules and the poster that we shared with families to help them make a choice. Is this program right for you? And at the time, of course, Marty Reed predicting the future, she said, I have high hopes that this partnership will continue long after COVID. This is going to be a model program that many others would like to replicate. It's so important to get kids outside, exploring, experimenting, and investigating. And she's right. We have become a model program, and the partnership has continued. Some feedback from some of the parents we got. Please enjoy these photos at the time, but these parents say, you know, it's incredible for both parents and children. On a personal level, I was able to continue to work and bring in income while simultaneously ensuring enrichment for my children during the day. The closure was very hard on them. We were isolated from at-risk family members, and they really missed in-person school. It was a time of confusion for them. However, the CNC COVID Care provided enrichment and consistency in a safe outdoor setting. We'll be forever grateful. And you can see some of the scavenger hunts we went on, logging into our online classes in the sunshine, doing all sorts of creativity, science, history lessons, and really getting to know and care for ourselves in this place that we were in during this difficult time. And a little feedback from some of the staff and teachers that we worked with as well. One teacher said, I've worked with the Nature Center for years now. During COVID, their outdoor spaces created safe spaces to explore learning, have lessons on all subjects taught by experienced and effective rangers, and have a chance to be in nature during a stressful and chaotic time. The rangers intentionally create meaningful relationships with the hundreds of students and staff that make their way through the program. They create effective, engaging lessons that the children love. The CNC and the Rangers are the backbone of the program and are unique and cherished resources that have a huge positive impact on Pusd as a whole. And, you know, it's really, I cannot express personally how meaningful this program really has been, but I hope the words that I continue to share from our teachers, our parents, the students, inspire you the way they've inspired me over this past year and a half. Again, engineering activities, scavenger hunts, identification, building, researching, exploring, moving our bodies, connecting with one another. That was at the core of our COVID care programs. In addition, as I said, the Community Nature Center had been relatively dormant when we first started, you know, looking at these. We were seeing maybe just a few dog walkers on the trails per day. When we switched to COVID care, and we were, you know, sometimes seeing 200-300 students every single week walking through the Nature Center. So adjustments had to be done, and special thank you again to the partners that made that happen. Our local fire crew came out and brought us logs and stumps to create these classrooms here. We had a Civilian Conservation Corps crew that worked for a month, 10 of them, 40 hours a week, just on revising the site for Pusd. The GEM Corps crews, and many, many others. We can see a Prescott College volunteer up here in the corner, committing to making this a space for Pusd students and teachers to thrive. That included 3 whole new classrooms, a pond classroom, the juniper classroom, the bird's nest, putting in an ADA accessible portable restroom, putting in signage at the students' eye level, and of course improving a lot of the habitats and trails for increased safety and accessibility. And this got folks' attention. Maybe you've been seeing it in the news as well. We made a lot of local news here, but also we received national and state recognition as well. I received a state award for environmental education for this specific initiative. It was acknowledged by our state organizations. At an international level, this project was acknowledged for an award by the Global Environmental Education Project, as well as the North American Association for Environmental Education. And again, of course, the local abundance of news as well. Other districts have reached out with questions, other schools, other cities, and asked for photos of the sites of what we've done. And I just want to say this to commend PUSD and the city, is that this is truly an innovative partnership, and something like Marty Reed said earlier, something that I think many others currently are and will continue to look to as an equitable model for students and teachers to access outdoor and environmental learning. And how exciting, one of those big developments that I can't not point out here was the development of the school trails, or the Jaguar Trail and the Grizzly Trail, that connect Abaya Judd and Granite Mountain School with the Community Nature Center, including multiple new outdoor classrooms that I'll get to show you here. So special thanks to all the people that made this news possible and those developments possible, such as our incredible trail designer and builder, Chris Hosking, and his crew. And of course, the amazing Teresa over at Granite Mountain School. What an awesome principal to have leading those opportunities as well. Again, this recognition is really of PUSD and the city and all of those staff for the amazing things that they've done. So behind the scenes, how does this operate? How did this happen? A lot of incredible organizations work with us. There's myself as a part-time education director. Currently, we have 2 park rangers, Ranger Taylor, Ranger G. Incredible. We've had interns from the college. We've had senior projects from the college, volunteers from the college, courses at the college. Prescott College has been really integral in this. We've had 5 AmeriCorps members since the last year and a half, including 2 of those as Vistas, 3 state members, and 1 GEM Corps crew that came out with GEM Environmental, that Civilian Conservation Corps crew that came out. In a moment to pause here, just really thank those donors, those grants, the gifts, the awards that we've received that have made this opportunity financially successful and financially accessible for the state that our city and district we're in. We really could not have implemented a program like that in the current situation without that input and the generosity of those donors. That also includes these community partners. We worked with over 30 organizations throughout our time at the Nature Center, over 40 volunteers, the amazing recreation department staff, and most important of all of those incredible PUSD staff and teachers, that they're the doorway. They are the doorway, and they are the steps that take the students out into these opportunities, that make room for those opportunities, and really support the students while engaging in them. Again, my utmost gratitude and appreciation for those PUSD staff. And what's next? Well, I'm going to pause here. As you see this presentation, I want you to know that there is a video that includes drone footage, high quality videography of walking all of the trails, seeing all of the classrooms under a kind of field trip model. So for respecting your time, I'm not going to show this video here. It's about 7 minutes long. If you'd like to watch it at the end or on your own time, please let me know. But it's a really great way to see the entire site and really celebrate this amazing resource that PUSD and the city have together. And then came the transition. Students, staff, teachers, all of you, that was a big moment as we started to look towards and move towards back to in-person learning. And our question at the CNC and at the city was always, how do we continue to support PUSD and their students and their teachers? And we talked to a lot of staff, we listened to our students, we listened to the administration, and we decided these are the things that we can do with our current resources that will continue to enrich daily PUSD opportunities. So this included free indoor and outdoor standards-based lessons with the park rangers, free guided hikes, walks, exploration, obviously all the outdoor learning supplies you can need. Teachers can check that out. They can simply take and use. We would set that up for them in those outdoor classrooms, including a little bin, your teacher's name, and all the materials you need. So when you walk the students over, it's ready to go. Set up, take down everything, assisting with those outdoor lessons, developing units and projects with the teachers. This has been really critical because many teachers want to do reoccurring long-term investments in units or discoveries or projects that the students really get to invest in, as well as service learning opportunities, help with some different science information and free professional development opportunities. And right here, you can see classrooms in action. This is in the Bird's Nest classroom. We're studying how Prescott has changed over time by looking at and analyzing different map sources. These are with our awesome AbiaJed 4th graders. And here's some great AbiaJed 2nd graders down in one of the little classrooms along the Jaguar Trail. And here they are creating models and replicas of trails based on design theories and what they think will make a trail accessible and fun, and then creating maps for those trails. So really cool ways to integrate the outdoors, hands-on learning, and those academic standards. And it's always important to, for me, whenever I have an opportunity, to lift up the voices of those true leaders and supporters of our students. So here's some of the feedback from teachers and staff in our evaluation. I'm only going to read a few parts in bold right now, but you have copies of this, and I hope that if you want full copies of the slide or anything else, you just let me know. The teachers and staff, they think this partnership enables the teachers to get students outside to actively learn about nature. That the free programming and support that the Community Nature Center offers is extremely valuable to our district. The CNC provides teachers with a list of standards, subject areas that can be covered with outdoor lessons. They're available to meet and they look at our curriculum map and plan for the entire quarter, semester, year. As a teacher, it makes my job 10 times easier. The rangers do all the lesson planning, and I know that when we go to the CNC, my students will receive the highest quality lessons out there. And that the students remember the lessons the rangers taught them. There's carryover into different subject areas. And what did the students think? We asked our teachers, what do you think the students think and experience and feel based on their time at the Nature Center? And this was some of the wonderful feedback they shared with us. I noticed students who are not confident or successful in the classroom become confident and feel successful in the outdoor environment. I was surprised at how much more information my students retained. I want more programs and partnerships like this. It'll give my students an opportunity to apply their classroom learning in real-world contexts. In this one, of course, listening how students understand the concepts and perk up, how a student who is normally reserved was able to verbally communicate to her group and felt empowered and confident. And that I don't think very many of my students get out in nature like that often. So it's a rare opportunity for a lot of students. We look forward to our time there. Here's some of the numbers. Pusd student visits. We've had student visits over 11,000 times. That's almost 11,720, almost 12,000 student visits. Many of those students are reoccurring, or for the teachers at least. We see that over 90% of our staff and teachers have come back more than once, with almost 60% of them returning more than 10 times. Those students that have come are from almost every single school in the district here. The total number of Pusd students served is over 1,000. We have worked with over 30 staff and teachers, from community staff, from either support programs for Pusd or other programs, over 93 different community staff and volunteers. Total community participants have been over 2,000. And when we come down to it all, total site visits are over 14,000 in the past year and a half. And again, to give you some context, prior to these developments and the revitalization of the IGA with Pusd in the city, we were seeing maybe 10 or so visitors a week. And now we're looking at seeing on average between 100 to 250 students every single week. Some weeks around 60, and some weeks over 600 students visiting. Cumulatively, Again, 14,000 site visits here and 1,000 Pusd students served. Really exciting year together. But here's a little bit more data, and this is where I get really nerdy and excited. We're just having these evaluations roll in. We've heard from about 12 teachers and staff that we've worked with, just under half of those that have received this survey, and already we're getting really excited about the numbers coming out here. So we can see that 90%, over 90% of the teachers we work with have an increase in their confidence in taking students outdoors. That combined with a 100% increase in their interest in taking students outdoors. So this time has had this impact that we hadn't even thought about, which is inspiring, supporting, and really being there as a resource for teachers to get excited about and engage with outdoor and environmental learning with their students. And if the Nature Center can be anything, we hope that it's really a bridge for those teachers to have that agency to provide these opportunities on their own and know that these park rangers and the Nature Center will be with them every step of the way. And on the flip side of this, we have this impact on our students as well. So exciting to hear that 100% of those teachers are seeing an increase in students' social and emotional well-being, and that 100% of those teachers are seeing an increase in student engagement. Now, if we're talking about district-wide goals here, I know that it's been a tough year, 2 years, and probably tough going forward. That social emotional well-being impedes learning opportunities and academics in the classroom as well. So I know that this district is making a really smart decision in the investments they've made in social emotional well-being for students, including the new coordinators and folks in every school. And we're just so excited to know that the work that's happening at the Nature Center is supporting this district-wide goal, as well as increasing students' academic engagement. You know, these two here really go hand in hand for me to think about ways we can continue to increase wellness and academic performances. So exciting to be able to support those huge district goals. And especially this right here. I mean, there's a lot of myths out there that outdoor learning means students will be distracted, they won't focus, they're going to be, lots going on, there's not going to be a lot of retention from those things. But compared to indoor activities, 100% of the teachers and staff we talked to saw an increase in student engagement. So if we're having any qualms out there right now about the efficacy of this type of learning and programming, not only do I have lots of other research that I'd be super happy to share with you all, but that even our own teachers and staff are seeing that this is an increase in their students' engagement. And what do they want you to know? Again, it's an honor for me to be able to use my platform here with you all today to lift up the voices of the teachers and staff in our community. Please keep it going. The Community Nature Center is a very important part of our learning. We're very fortunate to have a partnership like this. You should all know that this is a great benefit to our students, or that careers involving the environment are becoming more and more needed. We can help our students work towards a future that's sustainable. And please, keep up this healthy partnership that benefits hundreds of students, as well as teachers in our school district and in our community. So, as closing thoughts, from all of the evidence we've seen today, perhaps maybe some joyful photos as well, coming back to the evidence and that we have for this partnership. Please, if you want any of this information, I'm happy to hand it to you, but I didn't want to use up too much time today. But this research is saying from multiple sources, multiple journals, and multiple universities that children need this. And we can see that with our own eyes. We can remember our own childhoods, and we can look at the childhood of children today. We can see that children benefit from this. We can see what happens, and our teachers are telling us to, those evaluations that the teachers are saying, they're saying, this is working, and we want more. So if I'm going to summarize everything that we've talked about today, it's all in this vision for our work going forward together, that every student in Pusd has access to free, safe, healthy, joyful, and academically engaging outdoor learning opportunities. That's every child, everywhere, and every day. And in the words of the director of the Parks and Recreation Department, Joe Baines, outdoor recreation and education walk hand in hand. The opportunities abound within the city's outdoor spaces to combine the two, and I'm very excited to partner with Pusd to expand the opportunities that benefit our most important asset, our children and our future. So again, thank you so much. My name is Ellen Basher. It's been a real joy sharing with you this evening, and I look forward to answering any questions you have and providing you with any more resources that you may like. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Ellen or comments? You were very thorough.
Covered it well.
I would add that that program was also important in our summer school. This summer, we
Huge.
relied on CNC quite a bit and the Rangers for our summer school programming as well. So it's become an integral part of our district. It really has.
Okay. Are we able to make much use of the programs during the winter? I find it interesting that we're having this program now just as we are entering into the winter.
That's a really great question. So we do use it through the winter. We used it all through last winter, which actually turned out really well because we were able to identify all the students that didn't have adequate winter gear and get that for them too. But it's really amazing. We live in probably the best place for outdoor learning year round here, and so we've got students scheduled up all the way to the end of the year. Oh yeah, of course. So sorry.
Then we can get you out in Saginaw.
Question about having classes at the Nature Center in the winter, and the answer is absolutely yes, because we live in Prescott and the weather is fantastic. We were able to use winter time during the programming to help identify students who needed more winter gear and get them hooked up with that. And we have classes all the way through the end of the school year there at the Nature Center as well. If there's bad weather, we follow all district policy and make sure the students are safe. But it's also a great opportunity for them to learn those life skills of dressing and engaging in the outdoors. So we're excited to, whenever the weather is safe, be out there with them.
Thank you. I also am very pleased to see that obviously Abaya Judd and Granite Mountain are going to be able to access the programs much more easily. But I'm pleased to see that the students from our other schools are also included in those programs, so.
Yeah, we are too, and you know, it's a kind of a pilot year, first year and a half, we're trying things out. We saw a lot of those other students during the summer school program, spring break, and then COVID care as well. But it would really be exciting to think about additional city sites that the Rangers could connect the students with, additional schools, and either coming there or taking them to explore some of the other amazing natural and social resources we have here.
Terrific. Anything else?
I have a question about, are there programs to kind of, I noticed the high school participation was lower, I guess. Maybe a program that would bring high school students out for an internship type of opportunity to serve as a ranger or mentors to the younger kids as they come in and help with lesson planning, and that might be something to consider.
Yeah, that's a fantastic idea. We've worked with the Arizona Serve High School Ambassadors program before, and they've come out and done projects with us as well. But it'd be really exciting to use that model and get those scholarships involved in there too, so that more high schoolers can come over for leadership opportunities,
Right.
not just for student opportunities. Thank you.
We've also talked about ways to kind of make it easy for teachers across the district at other schools to ask for a bus and be able to hop on a bus and get over there. It's not super hard. We have those resources during the middle of the day. And, but you know, there's a lot of paperwork to fill out to do that. So we've talked about ways to streamline that and just make it more simple for those folks.
Okay.
And if, grants come along, there's always opportunities for a Parks mobile that could come and scoop our students and take them to the beautiful lands around the community. So lots of really good ideas there. I know that transportation is definitely one of the biggest barriers. And it was amazing to see when we put in, just for Granite Mountain and Abaya Judd, the Jaguar trails, how many teachers now use and engage with that independently and feel much safer getting over to the nature center along the nature trail instead of along the road. Okay.
How about utilizing other city trails and sites as learning experiences? Is that something you've thought about? I know you have this wonderful space and you definitely want to use it, but in expanding opportunities, you talked about going to other park sites and things. The trail system is just incredible, and with Lower Goldwater Lake being opened up now, you know, that could be opportunities for additional learning to learn the different topography of the area and the history and how the granite dells were formed and things like that. That could be really amazing.
When we spoke with Tyler and Joe about the Granite Creek Corridor expansion project, and they are including some outdoor classroom or areas where it's a little bit wider and you could stop and pause and do learning there. And that would be very accessible to Lincoln and Mile High. You could just walk to those sites. So yes to all of it. We want to do it all.
Yeah, and Andy, if you have more good ideas, Andy, send them our way, because these are the talks we're having right now, is really, you know, where do we want to go next? Where are the highest needs, both in different schools or in different student populations? And how does the city, with all of our abundance of resources in terms of land and spaces, use those to really meet the needs of those specific populations or their teachers or their classroom projects they may have after school as well?
Okay.
And when we get to this easement voting item, we might ask Tyler and or Joe to talk a little bit about what the grant is that kind of brought the easement up, because there's some really neat things that we're looking at putting in down on the creek right outside Mile High, as Marty mentioned.
It's super exciting for us, and I just really want to say that it's amazing to work with a district that's really also super excited about these opportunities and the ways that they can serve students in a really holistic manner and give them opportunities both for career development and, like you said, with a park ranger opportunity or an internship, as well as those academic standards. As someone who's been in education for a while, it's just on a personal note, it's really wonderful to see the transformation in the educators and their excitement and their joy, because I think they are the leaders of where this will go in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much. I had a great time, and thank you for letting me present to you all. Please reach out with any more questions, or if you want to watch the video, I'm happy to share the link.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have our information-only items.
So I lost a bet. They don't fit like when I was in high school these days. But you might have seen the Badgers lost a couple weeks back to Bradshaw Mountain. And so we made a friendly bet with John Pottis, the superintendent over there. And so I'm wearing their jersey tonight. It's the first time I've ever worn a Bradshaw jersey, hopefully the last. It's possible he's wearing one tonight because 2 weeks later we beat them. Long story. So that was kind of a fun piece. But this may be the only time I wear a Badger jersey to a board meeting. Community has done for us in just the last week, and we have such a generous community. But in just this last week, St. George's Orthodox Church donated $7,000 worth of Walmart gift cards to 70 kids through the Hungry Kids Project.
Wow.
And our Sarah Torres was a big part of contacting all of those families, and they came in and picked those up. You know, we're often working with hungry kids to make sure those kids have food on the table on the weekends or on the holidays. But this was someone in our community that just stepped up above and beyond and said, can we do more? Another piece is, as you drove in, maybe you saw some new equipment. We saw a new playground right here. If not, it might be a little dark when you go out. But our friends from the Jewish Community Foundation donated a $60,000 playground right out here for our preschool kiddos. They are thrilled this last week running around out there. This is one of many huge projects like this that the Jewish Community Foundation has donated to our schools, including our computer makers lab at the high school, including huge band projects at Granite Mountain. So, and then last Friday, as some of you were with us, and we took a bus around to schools with the Pusd Education Foundation, where we donated 7 different innovative awards and $22,000. Now we do this Pusd style with the drum corps leading down the halls. Yes, disrupting classes, carrying checks, and then handing those to those teachers. So it's a really neat project. Those are just 3 examples from the last week of how generous our community is. And then I just wanted to give you a reminder that Acro Night is another great community project on Friday night, and it'll be kicked off by the PHS Choir doing the opening ceremonies at the courthouse in Gurley. And then we'll also have our PHS Jazz Band at the Hike Shack that night, and we'll have incredible musicians all throughout downtown Prescott, so we hope you come out for that one.
Thank you. Any board members have anything to share? Lily?
Yes.
You're close to the end of the first semester. How are things going at the high school?
Well, I think we're all well prepared and excited for winter break. Yeah, I can tell you that. Today's this week's Spirit Week, so I see a lot of kids participating.
Good.
Which is always nice. And yeah, we're just ready to take our finals and get on with our Christmas plans.
I have to say the high school's hallways look
Yes.
amazing. If
Yeah.
you've got to go and see the decorations. How many hours
Okay.
do you think that took?
Oh, I have no idea, but I think this week, out of the past few Spirit Weeks, they've really gone out for this one.
Yes.
There's a nearly full-size train, there's fireplaces, all kinds
All
of
over
stuff.
the
Yeah.
lockers.
It's just wonderful.
Great. All right. We'll move on then to the consent agenda. Is there anything on the consent agenda that anyone wants to have further explanation or comment on? Once again, I would just like to recognize, as Joe already has, the generosity of our community and all the donors. I'm always hesitant to point out the big donors, because it's just as important to me if somebody is giving $5 to the district who doesn't have thousands of dollars to give, and they're showing their support. And so I would like to just put out a thank you to those who are donating to our community. If there are no,
I just have one.
yes, Cara.
One question, I guess Joe can answer it. On the intergovernmental agreement between us and YCESA,
Yep.
don't we have a full-time grant person here?
Yeah, I don't know that we've ever used this, and you'll see a lot come through like this, where like
Oh,
nurses maybe, it's in case we need to use it. There's times where we collaborate with YCESA and Sherry Sterling, who's their grants person. I don't know that there's a charge with that, but this would be, if there was a situation where we said, okay, we need to use your resources to do that. So it's just setting it up so we can use it if needed each year. And so it comes to us each year. It's a good question.
Okay. If there are no further questions or comments, could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, we're moving on to the study and voting session. Sarah, do you have a? No. Okay. First item on the voting section is to consider approving the dates and time for the governing board meetings for the year as presented. These were sent out with the agenda. Were there any questions, comments, complaints? I did have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
For the years I've been on the board, we've always had to have 2 meetings during one of the summer months.
Mhm.
I don't see that on here. Is that because of that late meeting in July, or?
Well, we're kind of at the mercy of the state. We have to see when they're going to have the new budget worksheet out.
Okay,
Once we know when the new budget worksheet is out, we have a certain amount of time to approve that, and then there's a second approval by
Yep.
law 2 weeks later. So once Mr. Moore says, I got that budget worksheet, then we get in touch with the board and look at, so it's,
so
sometimes they do it at one
Yeah.
time, and sometimes they do it at another,
so we may be adding an additional meeting to
most
what's
likely.
on here?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments on the governing board?
Are
Let-
retreat dates set separately from?
Yes.
this? Okay.
Okay. Could I get a motion to approve the dates for the governing board meetings?
I move that we approve the dates and times for governing board meetings for the year 2022 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the dates and time for governing board meetings for the year 2022 as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right. Our second voting item tonight is to consider approving a public trail easement agreement between Pusd and the city of Prescott. This is our outdoor learning night,
It
apparently.
sure is. Yeah, and actually, this easement is where the creek goes through Mile High Middle School. And way back when I was principal, that the governing board at that time approved this easement as a permanent easement. But I had recently heard from Tyler Goodman and Joe Baines. They were working on a grant, and the wording wasn't really congruent with that grant, what that grant was looking for. And so we just did a little work on taking a look at that wording, which really didn't change any of the meaning of it. And we had our attorneys take a look at it. And as always, our experience with our partners at the city was smooth and cordial and kind of an easy process. So there's not a lot to this. It's just a wording change. But you know, the neat part of it too, though, is what kind of where we're headed with the grant and with the possible future of that. If you want to hear from Tyler or Joe about what that looks like, but also we'll entertain any questions about the wording of the easement.
Joe or Tyler, does either of you have anything you'd like to say to us?
Well, I came all the way here. I might as well tell you about it.
Might
right?
as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having us. We're glad to be with you tonight. This project, it's been a lot of years in the making. You might have been following it. We recently received word that we needed updated language for this easement in order to qualify for the grant. We were hoping to do the work as we speak, starting last month, but we'll have to push it off about a year because of the kind of the grant mishap. But this is going to help us greatly. So we're looking at going out to bid for the project next spring, getting a contractor on board, and then starting construction on the improvements to the trail beginning next October. And if you're not too familiar, we're looking at access, lighting, improving the creek flow, improving the trail, the surface. As Marty mentioned, we're going to have places for education for the children, and they'll be able to hike and walk, and maybe Joe can speak a little more to that, but this will help us greatly. So we hope for your support, and I'll turn over to Joe for maybe some more details.
I do need to point out that Tyler is PHS alumni and our assistant city manager. We're very proud.
They didn't have a school system when I went to school. That's how old I am. I just wanted to talk
Or
for
you
a
would have
minute.
been a Badger.
Yeah. I just wanted to talk for a minute about, our partnerships and the quote in Ellen's presentation. It really means a lot to me. I really think that outdoor recreation and education walk hand in hand. So Marty and Joe and all of us have kind of been talking about this Granite Creek corridor and how we could, make opportunities available for students to learn in an outdoor setting. So we've got some spaces in there we call educational centers, which would just be an area where you can have a picnic table and set students down and kind of give them an opportunity to learn, get exercise at the same time, maybe end in Granite Creek Park with a little curriculum there, and then work your way back. So, And I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Story Walk at Granite Creek Park, but that's something we did with the library, which is a story for youth, for children, small children. That's 23 stations that go around that track. And so as the kids walk around with their parents, they read the panels, and at the end, they get the whole story. That's kind of the vision I have for this, too. We could even have, you know, placards that could be changed to fit curriculum as time goes on if you wanted to go from science to some other, you know, type of education. So we're really looking forward to that. And just like Joe said, we really value our partnership with PUSD. It's been a great partnership, and we can do a lot together.
Thank you. Board, are there any questions, comments?
The question I have, and I don't think this is an issue, but are there public access issues to the school from the trail?
Yeah.
Do we need to be concerned about anything like that?
Security issues?
We took care of those with fencing
Okay.
and signage years ago.
Okay.
So the first time around there was, and then
Yeah.
we added those things, but
Yeah.
I think we've got that taken care of, don't you, Joe?
Okay. All right.
Who's responsible for trash pickup? Like, who clears the trails?
The city
city?
of Prescott. Yeah.
Which is kind of nice compared to how it was before.
Yeah.
We've
Anything
noticed since
else?
the trail has gone in and gotten, it'll get even better now, but it used to be kind of trashy, as you may remember. But with the trail use that we get now, it's less and less. And with the improved lighting and the wayfinding signage and all of this that we're going to do, it'll even be better.
I was impressed with the plan that was put together. It was very thorough. Lots of improvements, so
Thank you.
thank you. Anything else?
The only other question I have is how long does this extend? So we saw the whole packet, I guess. How long is all of the improvements going to plan to take? And is that going to disrupt Mile High Middle School at all as you're removing trees and fixing the grade and all of those things in the?
You're correct. There will be some disturbance. We'll work with Andy, whoever we need to coordinate that ahead of time to make sure that we're doing the bulk of the work during school breaks or whatever the case might be. We also have a nesting issue with bird migrations and things that there's certain times of the year that we can't work. So the project's it's not gonna be your just typical project where you start and work till you're done. There's gonna be some little breaks in between. So we'll work with you folks and make sure that we are as less disruptive as possible.
Okay.
Years ago, prior to the easement, the issue was overgrowth and management of that, because it was our issue. And since the city came in, that hasn't been an issue. It's been really nice. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Whoops. Thanks. Okay, could I get a motion on this?
I'll move that we consider approving a public trail easement agreement between Prescott Unified School District Number 1 and the City of Prescott.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve a public trail easement agreement between Prescott Unified School District Number 1 and the City of Prescott. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. All right, moving on to the information and discussion items. Brian Moore is not able to join us this evening. He had another commitment. The summary budget report was in your material for the meeting. Were there any questions that you'd like to have passed on to Brian?
I think he has Lily ready to answer this, right?
Oh, yes.
I'm kidding.
All right.
I just have one question. I've heard it batted around, the term classroom site fund. What is that?
301. It's Prop 301. It's the
That's Prop
formal name for
301.
that, yeah.
And it's state monies?
It's state sales tax.
Sales.
Uh-huh. And passed by the voters in the late 90s as one form of trying to get us off the bottom 49. We're still there, though, 30 years later.
Okay. I didn't realize it was 301 and classroom site fund. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good.
all right.
Did I get that right,
Do we have-
Lily?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have something on the ESSER funds?
Yeah, we have a link from Darla.
Okay.
Good evening, board members and guests. I'm Darla Eastman. I'm your ESSER coordinator. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a brief update of the ESSER activities for the month. I'm very happy to report that we had an exciting and busy month with ESSER. I want to thank everyone who helped get the ESSER committee going. Also want to thank the principals for their nominations for the ESSER committee members. We got a really great group together and lots of good feedback and activity with the committee. I'm really excited for everybody that's on the committee. So thank you so much for being on the committee. Our first meeting was December 1st. As a team, we went through the presentation together, and I'll share with you the presentation. Here was our agenda. Again, it was on December 1st. Welcomed everybody and went through the wish lists and purchasing process, and quick mention of Pusd Tutoring Program and our next steps. So we went through the ESSER allocations and provided some expiration dates of each grant, so everybody has an idea of when that's going to be. Also, just to share the difference from the two ESSER awards, the ESSER 3, how it differs from 1 and 2. Of course, it's the 20% required set aside to address disrupted learning using evidence-based academic, social, and emotional learning strategies. And one of the main focuses to get the team together was to work on our wish lists for the schools and the departments to make those decisions thoughtful and meaningful. We used stakeholder input with those wish lists from the surveys, information from teachers, staff, and members of the public on how we want to see the funds get spent in the best use and to get the most out of our money. We'll continue to work on those lists, rank the priorities, get quotes, and ensuring the items will meet the requirements of the grant funding. So we also talked about what our outcomes, what we're looking to see out of the meeting, just talking about all the stakeholder feedback and how we're going to utilize that. Here's an example of the wish list. So it has the list of what we want to see funded. Then we're going to rank them and prioritize them. So the next part of the meeting, we went over the tutoring program, and this is part of the 20% learning loss that we want to see one of our programs utilize. This has been a really exciting part of ESSER. So far we've already got teachers and students all signed up and ready to connect and tutor. So it's been really, really well utilized, and so even up to now, we've got a lot of folks very, very interested in. So I think it's going to be a really good program. We're also utilizing this flyer as part of recruiting process for parapros, where a lot of folks are very much in need of parapros, and so we're utilizing this this flyer and getting the information out in the recruiting process. So the next steps. Continue with ESSER committee meetings, strategic planning, keep on working with the ESSER revisions and maintenance, continue website updates, and potentially do a second round survey of stakeholder input. That's a question. We're not sure we want to do that. We see that our lists are coming together very well, so we'll have to see about that in the future. and attending the site council meetings, been doing that, and just keeping that going. It's been really informative and really good to attend. I've been enjoying that. Also, just to keep the board member up to speed. And also, this is our next meeting dates, January 5th, 26th, February 16th, March 9th, and March the 30th, upcoming meeting dates. So if you have any questions or want to talk to me about anything with ESSER, please do so. And here is my email address and my extension. So thank you so much for your time, and have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Does anyone have questions or concerns you'd like passed on to Darla or Brian?
I just have one question. On one of the slides, it was like the first, the second or third, it said we had to spend 20% of ESSER 3 on whatever, and I don't know if it was the next slide, but it said something about local equity requirements. That sounds like another thing that we have to do. Can you explain? Do we know what that is? Requirements.
The requirement that I know about is that the first piece you talked about is that it's got to be filling in the gap type situations like the tutoring.
It was the last.
Yeah, the equity part, I don't know.
Another bullet.
We'll have to dive deeper into that. I think we should probably bring this to the retreat to where we can have more discussion about it. But I'll definitely look into that and get the board information about what that obligation is.
Okay, it just sounded like something else we had to do. So.
I'm sure it is, right? There are some hoops to jump now.
Okay.
Initially, they were like, no hoops on this, just straight money, and now there's hoops.
Now there's hoops.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions. The committee, who sits on that committee?
Marty, do you know who's on the committee for ESSER?
I have not been involved in that, I don't know.
Yeah. It's teachers, it's staff members, but we'll get a full report on what that committee's doing. That was just their first meeting.
Okay.
Yeah,
I would just be curious in the breakdown of like teachers from different schools or staff from different schools that represent different populations.
My conversation with Brian, and this will be familiar to you, was to mirror the BOSC committee, which was the Bond Oversight Committee, so that, we have a group of people who are getting together over and over again that are stakeholders, and they're watching how this goes and making recommendations and the whole type of thing.
Okay.
And we had some neat interaction between BOSC and the board in terms of reports and then, feedback and readjusting and refocusing with the bond, so.
Okay, which might play into my other question, which is just she mentioned that the wish lists were going well, and if I remember correctly, those were created based on the survey that we distributed to teachers, which is wonderful. And I am still curious about the input of parents and guardians, other stakeholders outside of just staff and teachers. So to the question of like, do we do a second round of survey or not? I guess I would just want to know more about who we're surveying, and if we have not solicited opinions from teachers and guardians, then consider including them in maybe the prioritization of that wish list. And then the tutoring program, it looks like that was highlighted as one of the steps forward. And I was curious if there's an emphasis with that. The hiring page looked pretty general, but I'm wondering if are we looking at math or certain grade levels?
Yeah, not yet. We're just getting rolling on it.
Okay.
But it comes from the data of where kids are falling behind or where there's gaps, and we're tying it to that data.
It's all grade levels and all subject areas.
Okay.
Yeah. There was a bubble there that said math, science, ELA or language arts, and social studies.
Okay. So right
the
now
core.
It's everything, and that will narrow down based on the needs. Okay. That's all I have.
Okay.
Would it
Any?
possible to get a copy? I couldn't read the wish list, and I don't
Yep.
know if anybody else could. but
Oh,
maybe-
no.
Maybe we could have that sent to us, just to review. No,
I'll put it
for
in
no
my
other-
report to you.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay.
That was just a sample one, so
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
there's one for every school or
Right.
something.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Some of them were quite lengthy. Understandably.
But 'tis the season
Yeah,
Yeah,
to be wishing.
yes.
that's right.
All right. Alexa, wanna give us your information?
Good evening. I have a few things I wanted to talk with you about. We've had a busy month. So last I saw you, that Friday, we did our booster shot clinic for our Pusd staff. We had just over 200 participants. We partnered again with Spectrum Healthcare. They've been a huge partner. This was their 5th clinic with us, and they've shown up every time, and they've been a great help. And we were also lucky enough to be able to invite staff family members. So we had many people bring their spouses or their parents or other individuals in their household who were in need of a booster shot as well. So that was just a huge thanks to Spectrum. They've really been a big partner for us during the pandemic. Second, we're still operating our testing clinics. Our last clinic was yesterday, and we've had our first clinic on August 25th, and we've done 1,789 total tests at our testing clinics, with 231 individuals testing positive at our clinics. And so I just wanted to provide you kind of a little visual aid showing the different demands of our testing clinics. So you can kind of see what started these testing clinics were a spike we were seeing in cases early in the school year. And then September, October, we had good attendance, but definitely not as high as August. And then when we had our outbreak at Mile High, and also we were kind of keeping an eye on things at Granite Mountain, you can see our spike. Our highest day, we did 145 tests at Mile High. It was pretty crazy. We had a long line. We tried to get through everyone. And then it's kind of steadily declined since then. So we're testing on Mondays and Wednesdays, and so we have 3 more clinics before the end of this semester. I'm not quite sure what January looks like yet. The county is thinking about making some plans for some community-wide testing events, and so we're still working with them to figure out what that looks like and how we might continue testing at Pusd or incorporating into those community testing events. So that information I'll have for you next month once we kind of solidify plans. We're also continuing our pooled testing. So we're doing that at Lincoln, Discovery Gardens, just the staff at Discovery Gardens. We're doing it here at the district office, and then also over at facilities and transportation. And so we actually did have 2 positive pools early in November. And so what happens when we have a positive pool is we rapid test all of the students that were in that pool. And we did identify 2 students who were positive for COVID, and we were able to send them home and separate them so that they weren't getting other kids sick. So that was kind of interesting to see that program work, but since then, all of our other pools have been negative. And I found it really reassuring as we came back from Thanksgiving break, especially over at Lincoln where we are having students participate in the pooled testing. All of our pools came back negative, so that was really good news. Our community metrics, for the past month, they've been steadily rising. However, last week, our cases per 100,000 did drop to 371. That's still significantly in high transmission. High transmission starts at 100 cases per 100,000, and we're still at 371. However, percent positivity did increase to 25.9% of PCR testing positive. So it's a little concerning that 1 in 4 folks going in to get tested for COVID are testing positive. Luckily, though, we're seeing a decline in cases district-wide. As of yesterday, when I updated the dashboard, we were at 19 positives. After I saw you last month, we peaked at 92, and we've been steadily declining since then. So we didn't see any real fallout from the Thanksgiving holiday, which was good. We were kind of bracing ourselves as people traveled and got together, but we didn't really see a fallout from that. And then lastly, we're just keeping an eye on the Omicron variant. We're still learning a lot. There's kind of 3 general areas that epidemiologists look for when they're studying a new variant. That's transmissibility, so how easily does it spread from one person to another? The severity of it, so when you do get it, how severe is your illness and how will it affect hospitalizations and deaths? And then lastly, does it evade immunity, both infection-induced immunity and also vaccine-induced immunity? So we're keeping an eye on things. We're starting to get bits and pieces of research, especially out of like South Africa and those other countries that saw it before we did. So hopefully in the next coming weeks, we'll get some more answers so that we know what to expect and how we can best protect ourselves. But it is here in the US. I just saw a map. It's in California for sure, also Utah and Colorado, so I can't imagine it isn't here as well. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Alexa?
I just have one.
Yeah.
I know I keep getting all the emails.
Mm.
Are we still, I know if the child is fully vaccinated, they don't have to quarantine. Are we still not quarantining the ones who've had COVID recently?
Correct. Yep. If a child has had COVID previously or is fully vaccinated, they are not required to quarantine. And with any family who is excused from quarantine, we do ask that they monitor closely for symptoms, because we have had students, both those who are vaccinated and those who have had COVID, get COVID again. So we ask that everyone monitor closely for symptoms, and that's part of the reason we wanted to offer the testing clinics, is so that family have easy access to testing after they know their child's been exposed.
Okay, I just hadn't, or I didn't read them carefully enough. I hadn't seen any of those lately, so.
Yeah.
Just wondering. Thank you.
Do our nurses have access to rapid tests, like in the day-to-day functioning?
Yeah, so all of our sites have rapid tests. Our principals are mostly the ones giving them, and we're using them, I would say, on a day-to-day basis, mostly with staff. It's been really helpful if a staff member wakes up with like some congestion or is slightly symptomatic, they can go in and see their supervisor and get a rapid test. We only use them at school with students if the parent is present and consents. We don't do it separate, except for in the pooled testing, because the parent has already consented to the rapid testing if their child is in a positive pool.
Did you have other graphs?
I did. Well, yes, I have other visual aids if you're interested.
There's one I think is pretty interesting.
Yeah, that one, Sarah, yeah. So this is our positive cases over the 2021 fall semester. And so it's interesting to see our peaks. So total, we've had about, I think when I looked today, we're at about 500 cases district-wide over the first semester. So again, you can see our peak that we had, our spike at the end of August, right as kind of school came back. And then we got really low. I mean, right when we came back from fall break, our lowest, we had one active case district-wide. And then we had our little situation at Mile High and some cases in other schools. We peaked at 92, and then we've been pretty steadily decreasing ever since. So it's just kind of interesting to see over the semester what we've experienced.
Do we have any, I know it's confidential and stuff, do we have any knowledge if kids are getting reinfected, like times?
We're seeing reinfections amongst students and staff, and infections after students and staff are being vaccinated. What the county is seeing is that those who have had COVID previously, once they're 8 to 9 months from their initial infection is typically when their immunity starts to wane, and that's when they're starting to see reinfections. And same with the vaccine, your immunity wanes over time, and so it's not uncommon for someone to test positive after being vaccinated. But yes, we are seeing reinfections of students and staff who had COVID. Mostly like this time last year, kind of in that winter spike that we had this time last year is when the people had it that are being reinfected now.
So does that mean we're in conversations about the policy around quarantine in terms of if you've had COVID before? Are we considering possibilities in terms of like how long ago you had COVID?
Yeah, so the state from AZDHS, their release from isolation and quarantine guidance, which we were following pretty strictly, actually says if you've had COVID more than 90 days ago, you need to quarantine. And then in talks with the county earlier in the school year, we were able to loosen that up. And we have had conversations with our medical advisory council as well as the county as if we do need to change that. Would it be more like if you've had COVID more than 6 months ago, you need to quarantine? We haven't changed anything yet. We wanted to kind of get through this last couple of weeks and then see when we come back how our community metrics are, how cases are district-wide. Because what's interesting is community metrics right now are pretty high, and COVID is very prevalent in the community, but we're not necessarily seeing that reflected at school. With only having 19 active cases, it's just kind of we'll have to do that cost-benefit analysis of do we want to change something, and we felt like we just wanted to get through this semester, come back, see how things are, and then make any adjustments at that time.
Is there any analysis of what those reinfections look like for people? If, you know, are they less sick? Are they, do they think they're not shedding the virus at the high rate that someone with an initial infection has?
I don't
Do you have
have
any
any hard evidence for you on that. I'd say anecdotally what we're seeing with our students who are both being reinfected in their first infection is our students typically fare pretty well. They do okay. It's typically mild. Their symptoms last a few days.
Okay.
But then we have seen students who, when their isolation time is up, that's 10 days, they aren't ready to come back to school. They're still pretty exhausted. They'll may come back for like a half day or kind of ease back into school. And then we do know of some students who are dealing with some long COVID and are working through that. So I don't know specifically what's happening with reinfections, but generally speaking, our students do relatively well if they do get COVID.
I was interested to see the directive or recommendation, at least, to our PE staff on making sure that we aren't overstressing students returning from a COVID infection. So
Yeah, and that's important, and that's something that the AIA had already been doing for student athletes who test positive for COVID. There's a pretty rigorous return to play procedure they have to go through, just because we know that there is a risk of heart damage and myocarditis if you do get COVID, and so we just want to be cautious and not overstress students. And so we just want our PE teachers to be aware, just to keep an eye on kids that are coming back from being COVID positive. We just want to make sure we're taking good care of them.
just FYI, I just returned from Ireland, and over there, if you are in a business and you are in a single location, like sitting or whatever, for more than 10 minutes, you must produce evidence of vaccination to be there. And I saw them kicking people out who were not vaccinated. They also have a very firm mask requirement for anyone entering a business. So they are certainly more stringent than we're seeing here.
But I'm proud to say we didn't close. We had our one, our 7th grade that we did have do virtual learning for a week, but we made it through the semester. And I think that's really impressive, and our staff have done a great job, and our students are troopers. And I'm just hoping that we're on the tail end of this thing.
Thank you, Alexa.
Thank you.
Clark.
Anybody remember board meetings when we didn't talk about COVID? I do. It's been a while. I long for those days. I hope that Alexa is right about being on the tail end of this thing. We'll see. So I've got a little bit more information for you about COVID. You know probably that in early fall, President Biden announced that he was aiming toward federal government requiring vaccinations for employees of businesses in the United States with 100 or more employees. And this would apply to be clear, only to employees, not students, if in fact it ends up applying to Pusd. On November 4th, OSHA, which is the Occupational Health and Safety Administration, you probably know, announced what they call an emergency temporary standard in response to the workplace danger that COVID presents. And we know that that's the case. There is some danger with COVID, just like there are with trips or falls or cuts or things like that. And so OSHA said we better get involved here. That emergency temporary standard involves some specific requirements and dates of required implementation of some things. You probably know that there'd already been some federal government requirements regarding federal contractors, federal employees, healthcare providers, et cetera. So this would be expanding that to, well, expanding most of those requirements to nationwide to all employers who have 100 or more employees. And Pusd has about 555 employees who would fall under this umbrella. That's everybody who's full-time, part-time, who works for us seasonally as an assistant football coach or a student worker or anything. So all of those folks would count under the 100, so we're definitely at 100. There's a couple of employer options within this mandate. As you probably know, one, employers can choose to require vaccination for all employees with the typical exceptions of religious exemptions, medical exemptions, etc. The other option for employers would be to allow folks to choose to be vaccinated, or if they choose not to be vaccinated, to be tested weekly for COVID and to wear masks while indoors. There's, of course, been multiple lawsuits filed regarding this nationwide, as I'm sure you are aware. There's a number of parties who believe that this mandate goes too far. It goes beyond just ensuring safe workplaces, and there have been also multiple lawsuits filed by parties who feel it doesn't go far enough to ensure workplace safety. So all of those lawsuits are out there right now. One has been ruled on so far in the Fifth Circuit down in Louisiana. There was a stay placed on this requirement, essentially a pause button for the implementation of this emergency temporary standard. OSHA has decided to comply with that stay, and has filed their own lawsuits of this. They're all in the fun lawsuit mix that we have these days in the United States. All of these lawsuits are being consolidated and will be heard by the Fifth District Circuit, which is up in Cincinnati. And it's likely that there's a lot of motions going back and forth right now from the various parties, but that's likely to be heard in the next month or so. And it's also equally likely that whoever wins or loses will appeal that to the Supreme Court of the United States, who may or may not choose to hear that case. They may let the case stand, the ruling stand as it was, or they may decide to hear it. At this point, legal experts have advised all employers, including Pusd, to hold off on implementation, which we are very happy to do, because there's a lot of work involved with this, but also to be ready to implement this emergency temporary standard. So there are actually 2 dates involved with this. One was, what is today, the 7th? One was 2 days yesterday. One was yesterday. There's a part of this that needed to be implemented by employers, and then the other was in January. Obviously, since there's a stay, we didn't implement anything yesterday, and I'm assuming there won't be anything up and running by January, but we'll see how that goes. But at any rate, we've been advised to A, not do anything, which of course we're not doing, and B, to be ready to implement this if it comes to pass, if the lawsuits swing the direction that some folks are hoping they'll swing, because it's not just a temporary standard, it's an emergency temporary standard. So the idea is that they won't say, well, now you have a month to implement this. You've had a lot of time, you've known about it, get it going. So for Pusd, our plan would be to continue to strongly recommend but not require vaccination for our employees. There's a lot of different pieces to this, and I've done 3 webinars now on this and talked with our lawyers about this, so I have a fair knowledge base on this. Not a lawyer myself, but I play one on TV. At any rate, a lot of different information for this, and I can share anything that you've got questions about, but we'll need a roster of vaccinated employees versus unvaccinated, and with the unvaccinated employees, we have to do weekly testing. We're looking at the logistics of that. I've been working closely with Alexa, and we've reached out to a couple of different companies that would help us with the tracking piece of that, et cetera. We're looking at a scenario where we don't know for sure at this point, because we haven't gathered all the data about vaccinated versus unvaccinated, although we're working on that piece, but we're looking at between 100 and 200 employees that would need to be tested weekly. The OSHA mandate allows us to pass that cost on to the employees themselves. Our plan is to avoid that if we can, to absorb that cost in the district, covered by ESSER funds, et cetera. So long story short, we're not implementing anything unless the courts decide that it is required by law. If it is required by law, we'll be ready to go here in Pusd, and we'll do what we have always done and always will do, which is comply with the law. That's what
And we're at number 5 this month on enrollment. So take it away, guys.
We've got a video for you.
Ooh.
Okay, this evening we are on our final goal area of enrollment for board discussion. And so we'll go over, as we have the past goals, some accomplishments and some areas to work on in each target area. The objective for the overall enrollment goal area is to meet the educational needs of the community to optimize enrollment. And so I'll start with target area 1. And that's about community input about enrollment. And when we're talking about this, we are implying all facets of the community, our students and parents and our full Prescott community. So accomplishments here, we saw a lot of loss in enrollment over the last year, and we've come back toward pre-COVID enrollment numbers. So that's a plus. We're seeing that as a trend across Arizona and in the county as well. So that's good across the board for public schools. There's been an extreme amount of communicating with parents district-wide, sending surveys and that type of thing during COVID. We took that to a whole different level. And so, used a lot of surveys for that piece. And then also collaboration with PTA was brought up by our principals as a major venue that's working very well in this target area. Some areas to work on that were pointed out. Again, COVID was a major setback, but we're getting quickly back on track, including how the community feels like about how we communicate. We realized that just the situation of COVID itself was not a popular communication, and so that's been a piece to work on across the country, and we certainly are focusing on that here in Prescott. And this is just not a goal area where we feel like, as we talk with principals, we've made the most progress. Our focus has largely been on marketing. We've been very successful there. So there's a lot of different ways to look at enrollment, but we talked about how we could more consistently ask parents what they want to see in terms of instruction and program offerings. And then also to re-up more formal ways to survey these ideas and tie into our trilateral goals at each school level, where we've identified the areas we need to work on. So that is target area 1.
And I'm going to talk to you today about target 2 of the goal area of enrollment. And this is about the internal retention of students. And really what that means is, what do we do internally as staff to make sure we're retaining our students? A couple areas that we've done a pretty good job in is really, helping our staff understand that we are in a customer service business, that our students are our customers. That's how we get paid. And what can we do to make sure we're meeting their needs and retaining them? And so we've been moving towards this customer service model, and it's been very helpful when we provide customer service training to our staff to really kind of keep that in the forefront of their thinking. Also, an example of where we have kind of internally made a change to meet the needs of our students is by providing Pusd Everywhere. And Pusd Everywhere is an online option for students, and our families really let us know that some of them prefer that option and that they would like their students to be able to work at home, online, and so we made that available to them. And then, a couple areas that we could work on is really to continue providing the customer service PD. That's something we haven't done in a little while. Also, we want to really systemize our tracking of students and why they're leaving us. Primarily, why are they leaving us? Is there something we could have done to retain them, whether that was internally or externally? And then lastly, we just want to make sure students are going home with stories of feeling valued and respected and supported at school. It's really the stories that students bring home about their interactions at school that really help retain them. If they're coming home happy and feeling challenged and feel valued by their teachers, then they're going to want to stay with us. So that's what internal retention of students is about.
Hi. So the third target area is enrollment trends. And you're probably hearing a little bit of this from other groups, but marketing in our schools really helps with enrollment, we believe. It's done through media. Leadership always is informally marketing as well whenever they're in conversations with anybody. Our preschool numbers are up. In fact, we have one at every elementary as well as what we have here at Discovery Gardens. And these students generally stay with Pusd. We do an end of the year reach out to parents and various communication means in order to confirm our enrollment. And if we don't hear back from people, we're quite persistent. Our district has played a huge role in helping the community in attracting and bringing businesses so that we can bring families, of course, to our school district. Joe is very involved in the Prescott CEO group and the Chamber of Commerce. Some areas that we think we could work on is that we have really, this is an area we'd love to focus on more. We have new census data that we could be using. We know that our population is growing slowly, and in fact, it's half the rate as Arizona, and it's not children and families, but retirement in our community. We do have some trend data that might be helpful to us, and we hope to be using it in a very proactive way. And we do need to refocus our boundary issues. There are some inequities that are causing class sizes in elementary, especially Lincoln, and we're hoping to realign those boundaries to even that out a bit and, again, encourage people to come to our schools. So that is it for enrollment.
Alrighty, so I am Clark Tenney. I am our Director of Human Resources here in Pusd, and I have been asked to go over Target Area 4, Economic Development Trends that impact enrollment. You can see the accomplishments up here. One is that we've got some new census data that has recently been released from the most recent nationwide census, has some great information about Yavapai County. We find that the Prescott area from that data is growing among the most slowly in the area. That gives us some good information to go with. That doesn't help our enrollment, but it gives us reasoning for why we're not growing maybe as quickly as we thought we would, etc. The Prescott area is the most slowly growing in the Tri-City area for sure. Prescott Valley, Chino Valley growing much more quickly, and we're growing about half the rate of Arizona as overall. And the growth that we do have is mostly retired folks. So we need to kind of look at that data and keep that in mind as we're looking at overall enrollment trends and how to support that. One of the things that we're doing as we look at that is how can we have some of the growth that occurs in the Prescott area be more family oriented, younger families, etc. And good business opportunities in Prescott are part of that. The district has played a role. Joe Howard, Marty, myself, others have worked with other groups in trying to help attract businesses to the Prescott area, which ostensibly would have potentially young couples with children, and that we might gain some momentum that way. We've also been really involved as part of that effort and beyond that effort in a couple of us in city government, on the Chamber of Commerce. Joe's been part of the Prescott area CEO group, and that's where a lot of those conversations about growth and supporting business-related growth in Prescott has been occurring. And then we're looking as well at, as part of our enrollment trends and whatnot, the opportunity for possibly the building of new schools in the area when the time comes, and that would probably need to come in conjunction with the selling of former properties. So we're looking at some opportunities there, as you're aware of. Areas that we still need to continue to work on. The conversation that we're having resonates with some people really well, that we need younger families in Prescott. Getting that message out even more. Okay, thanks.
Well, hi again. The next target area is number 5, and it's marketing. And as you all know, marketing is one of our most successful programs and has helped in this goal area for years. It's prominent throughout our strategic plan, and we know Rebecca Horniman has really dialed us in with that. Pusd Everywhere, our new online school, has created a very flexible option, and there's lots of marketing opportunities upcoming from this. We have incredible programs, and we also have answers to many current concerns, and we simply need to be, those things need to be shared, and we need to set the record straight about what we are doing so that people are aware. For areas to work on, we need to read up on ways to connect feedback from community to how we can actually market, so getting their input. There are many misconceptions regarding our programs, pathways, and offerings that we can positively support through expanded marketing. So we're proud of this area, but of course there's always room to grow, but we feel like we've really dialed this one in.
Our final area in the enrollment goal, target area 6, is creative course offerings. And so as we talk with principals about accomplishments, our program Pusd Everywhere, our online program, certainly came up because it offers very flexible and variety of courses. And so that really fits right into this area here. And we think we'll be able to work with students with a variety of needs. You may have like a student athlete or a musician that's traveling or a dancer that's traveling, and be able to meet those needs, but also for the first time, those kids be able to do some of our extracurricular activities if they wish. So then also CTE and CTED is constantly reviewing and gaining industry feedback and creating offerings that have an end outcome that jive with the job market. There's a formula that's legality there that we follow, and it's a formula for success for sure for CTE and CTED. So other accomplishments, STEAM is vibrant district-wide, STEM and STEAM, and led by Granite Mountain's rare accreditation with advanced ed, and that's really important. Also at PHS we have life skills and Naviance as part of that. That's career in college and prepping our students to be thinking ahead of and looking at what their talents are and where they want to head. We've got some amazing partnerships with the Community Nature Center, which is the city of Prescott, and many other partners. That particular relationship's at an all-time high, along with our clubs in K-12, from K to 12. We offer such a variety of flexible offerings in those areas. So lots of different courses and programs that kids can be involved in. In terms of areas to work on it in this part, the possibilities with CTE and CTED are endless. And that's something that we're always looking at. How can we use our buildings and facilities to meet those needs for the new things that are out there, or the things that we don't even know are out there that our students could do as adults in the future. And then also to continue to market the many new changing course offerings as we change and do different things each year. That has to be marketed so that people know what we have there. And of course to review and revise community input systems so that stakeholders have a more vibrant voice in all of our course offerings. So that's our overall enrollment goal. It's a very important goal, one of 5 in our strategic plan, and we put a lot of focus into that. It's our bread and butter in public education. And so at this point, we would entertain any questions or comments, and please discussion from the board. Thank you so much.
I think we needed to stop after every one and ask questions. No.
We can do that in the future. For sure.
How much money do we spend on marketing at the moment?
I probably have to get into a computer and look that up for you. We use most of that comes out of our civic accounts. So all the building rentals that we offer, which have certainly been hurt during COVID. That's how we pay for Rebecca. That's how we pay for Gary, who sets those facilities up. And that's how we pay for marketing. So I can get you a figure on that, but certainly not something I know off the top of my head.
Okay. Is it as complicated to redraw our district lines as it seems to be to draw the Arizona state lines?
Yeah. It's about like that, Carl. We've looked at it closely because we keep having this enrollment problem at Lincoln because it's this neighborhood school. And as we've done things like, the new apartments around McDonald's, like that's a buy a Judd. And we're down to the point here, and Marty knows more about this, and Brian certainly too. We're down to the point here where if we draw more boundaries around Lincoln, there's kids that live 2 blocks away that'll be going to other schools. So, and Lincoln's small, so it's hard to. So Lincoln's the challenge right now, and there's a lot of families that live in that area. and then the rest are kind of more spread out. But Marty understands that at a deeper level, so.
Yeah, we really have looked at it, but it's a combination of a high-density family area and our smallest elementary. And we really looked at changing those boundaries, but literally you would be able to see the school but not be able to go to that school. And so we continue to look at it. We have a new strategy with Karen, the principal of that school, to try to close out-of-boundary enrollment right away. We try to be flexible with families that want to go to a different elementary if they can drive their child there. But this year, we're just going to close it to out-of-boundary unless they're already going to the school or they have siblings, and see what that does. I know, it seems like it wouldn't be that complicated, but it...
True. But if you think about the Prescott streets that all were cow trails at one point, it gets complicated. But we will be reporting to the board on that as we continue to try and figure that out.
Other questions?
Oh, I do have one more question. How many kids do we have enrolled in PUSD everywhere?
The last number I heard was around 50. But
K through 12, or is
yes, primarily older kids, but some younger kids.
And I would just add, we're more of a pilot mode this year.
Yes.
This was supposed to be the building year for Rachel until the ITM model came along, and we said, oh, we can do it right now. So it's sort of building while we're flying right now. And I'm excited to see kind of what she's putting together, and we'll probably get an update on that pretty soon to you also from Rachel.
Is it going to change from what it is, just slightly from what it is now to what we're envisioning?
I think it'll probably change quite a bit. I mean, this year was just, oh, we can do this right now, and so it's, mostly for people who maybe didn't want to go because of COVID or that type of thing. What we're looking at next year is, hey, here's an option, that you could take for 2 periods if you want, or you could take all day, or you could travel and be a famous dancer and still knock off credits in PUSD at any grade level. So hopefully it's a flexible model that attracts people who are like, I would love to be, in the choir at Prescott High School, but I want to be online. So, yeah, so Cara, I think it'll look a lot different.
Okay. Well, I just have one comment. It didn't really have anything to do about enrollment, but you know how you let the seniors and they can have half day? Okay. Could we vary that so that some seniors have half day in the afternoon and some seniors have half day in the morning, so that they could work in the community better?
I think this program is going to bring some of that flexibility, for sure. Some of us haven't loved the half day, and we've kind of been moving away from that and making credits more rigorous. But it also is a neat thing for kids who work.
I don't think there's a problem doing that now. It's students choose morning classes and want the afternoon off. So if you can talk some students into coming to work for you and then going to school.
I'll get after them.
We can work with that.
First on my little agenda.
Marty's exactly right. There's no parameters currently to prevent that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I just thought that they only had
You're lucky because it's already happened.
they only had the courses that they wanted to take in the morning. But
well,
okay.
That'll be a good trend
right.
change, because they like to go, oh, my day's over here at noon. Hopefully they go to work or whatever.
But if we had more demand for that, then we would change those schedules so they could do that. You know what I mean? If that's the problem. Or, guess what? PUSD everywhere.
Yeah.
Send us some names.
Okay.
I noticed two things really stood out to me as coming up throughout all of those target areas. One was marketing. Certainly, marketing, communications, outreach lumped together. And the other was just the availability of the new census data. To those 2 points, one thing that occurred to me, and it's more of just like a comment and less of a question, but one thing that occurred to me while reading through these target areas and then the leadership's reflection and watching the presentation is just the
the ability to use the new data and use that as a strength. Because certainly the attraction of families through businesses and quality education, and as a stakeholder that cares about nonprofits and partner organizations, all of that is important. The reality is our retirement population has served Pusd so well for such a long time in so many different ways, and the partnership with the CNC is very exciting and well needed. And the reality is a lot of partner organizations over the last couple of years, for many reasons, but specifically COVID, the partnership's at an all-time low. So in terms of reinvigorating those partnerships within our community, whether it's the zoo or the Highland Center or Charlotte Hall Museum, I mean, we haven't seen a single Pusd kid for 2 years. And I think when I see some of the goals moving forward being like revisiting goals that kind of dropped off because there were more urgent things, I think I would just like to contribute that it would be nice to see some rejuvenation of those community partnerships, because it connects that retirement community, gives them those faces, and ultimately helps with the marketing and communication in terms of those stories that were mentioned, and creating that bridge that I think ultimately drives the enrollment and attraction to the area. So I just wanted to share that long-winded comment as my digest of this presentation. So thank you.
I mean, that's just such a huge part of marketing. You get those folks in our doors to see what's happening, and they are fans from that point moving forward. So good points.
What would you say are our major issues with enrollment? What things are creating the most difficulties with us?
We're flat. In fact, you know, in my career, in a 20-year trend, we're trending down, 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 down. We've lost 2,000 students over 20 years. And so now we're flat, which feels a lot better, because believe me, I was the superintendent and assistant superintendent through the down years, which means you cut $1 million or $2 million every year. I hope this board never has to feel that. But we're flat, and you know, you can play the magic tricks with the charter schools and with the competition and that type of thing. I think we're sort of balanced with all of that right now. If a charter school comes in, it will knock us down. We will cut, we will lose the amount of kids that they have seats. That's how that works. When a charter school opens, public schools lose that amount of kids, period. Any way you look at that. But right now, we're all sort of working together. You know, we made those cuts, suffered that pain, and we're all balanced. But it's that we're flat. We know all the tricks about growth. We're good at all of them, but that keeps us flat. So until there's a way to work as a community to say, how do we get balance in terms of how we grow together? And you know, this is a lot bigger than schools to me, and I've been studying it for years and talking and being in every group I can be about affordable housing and job markets and all those things that can attract families. But until we're growing the pie here in Prescott, it's going to be a challenge. So I hope that answers your question. That's been my challenge as a superintendent, and I've tried to take it head on. And you know, our community's been great about, you know, studying those things together and trying to figure those out. I don't know that we have figured it out, though.
So let me clarify what you're saying, that our biggest issue is that we don't have the students available to come to us because of the population trends and so on here in Prescott.
And I guess to finish that sentence, if you live in Arizona and you're not growing, the education model that we have, that is the bottom of the nation, punishes that. But we're pretty darn good. We're pretty darn good at being as efficient as possible with that. So we do well, we thrive. But we don't have the same resources that most other states in the nation have for our staff and for our students. So to me, our challenge is funding and education in Arizona is the bottom of the nation. It's not a priority for our legislators. And so you do not want to be shrinking or flat in Arizona. You want to be growing.
And I agree that that's a challenge. I mean, in any normal place that has growth of young families and an influx of people coming into the community that brings school-aged children in, that's a huge challenge. I just don't know where we go with, we talk about marketing, what are we marketing to? Because if we don't have the families moving in, the only thing we're marketing to is to poach students from other schools. I mean, it's not that general, but that's kind of what I'm seeing.
Sounds like a
But
kid.
it seems
Yeah.
like we would also be marketing to public opinion of education,
I agree.
Yes.
which can then lead to maybe increased resources over the long haul.
Right.
And maybe that's
And
why I
or
bring
if we
up-
don't stay on top of that and go the other way, which we've been battling through COVID like everyone has, then it's devastating. Then we're cutting $1 million a year again. You're cutting,
Yeah.
$2 million a year again.
And I agree, we have to do that. We have to do that type of marketing. But if we're talking about enrollment growth,
Yeah.
there's so many headwinds against that in this area, with the cost of living that we have, with the lack of places for young families to work and actually earn a wage that would allow them to live here.
Right.
Those are huge headwinds, and I don't know how we
I
overcome
said the
that.
school board aren't gonna solve them, but.
Yeah. But
We've
so
been
that-
working on it for a long
Yeah,
time.
I think that requires us to create a whole marketing plan that's bigger than
With the
just.
city, yeah.
Yeah, with the city,
Yeah.
with Embry-Riddle, with Yavapai College now that they have 4-year degrees. How can we get a research park or something here that pays
Yeah.
good wages and allows people to live in Prescott and send their kids to schools here?
But it's not just jobs, it's also childcare. And I think
Yeah.
that's where education is kind of like on the front lines, more so than creating a research park, which is, included in economic growth. And I guess I wonder like where within our marketing or our enrollment do we focus efforts specifically on like early childhood
Yeah.
and getting that resource available to our community?
I'd love to get deeper into childcare and younger into childcare. Because our preschool is unbelievable, and we have waiting lines, and we're expanding all the time. We're talking about renting a building outside of our district to do preschool because it's being so successful. And like Marty said earlier, if we get those kids in, they stay. That's why we did these satellites at each campus, so you could feel like your kids could feel like Lincoln School is their school starting pre-K, if they wish, But I'd love to get more into, could we figure out a way to do better childcare, because I know there's a big gap for the very young infants,
So maybe that's a focus of this strategy or this strategic goal is the marketing to get those kids early. If we've got waiting lists, what can we do to
Right. And enrollment aside, what you do for those academics in those early years, we know that early childhood research is huge, including hugs. I'll just throw that out there.
There's so much to it.
Yeah.
And there's so many partners that have to be a part of this. It can't just be the school district, which I know it's not, but
Yeah.
it can't just be PUSD trying to address these issues of community age and diversity and growth and all of those things. We've got one part of that.
It's been a while, but when Krista Carmen helped start the foundation, we used to talk about either opening a preschool or just partnering with a senior center, and what those kids and those seniors do for each other. So there's some pretty neat ideas out there.
Can we fund pre-K? I thought we were.
No, we have to charge tuition.
I just had one more question. When do you think we might get our volunteers back into our classrooms?
I may have Marty speak to that because we do have them at a certain level to where we've got a kind of a protocol where principals feel like it's going to meet our COVID protocols. So we have a lot of volunteers back in the classroom, but it's more of an essential volunteer piece.
Yeah, we have a good amount of our volunteers back in the classroom.
Okay.
It has to do with, you know, we don't want them in there just kind of willy-nilly. They really need to have a targeted essential task, primarily in intervention with students, reading groups, math help. So principals are approving volunteers, and we have a protocol. It's very simple. They just sign in and agree to let us know if they, you know, test positive and some things like that. But
Okay.
they're back. Are you hearing that they're not? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, no, they're pretty much back.
They're largely back, but
Yeah.
they'll be completely back when COVID's not we're not worried about controlling outside.
Part of it is, I'm sorry, is we have volunteers who don't want to quite come back
Right.
yet, so.
Okay, and then I just had one really good thing. You guys could write this down. The Sanford Educational Opportunity Project ranked Arizona as the highest in academic gains for both poor students and rich students. Like, Arizona was the best.
Nice.
Got that?
Yeah.
Sanford Educational Opportunity Project.
Are you sure it's
Every,
not
every child
opportunity
is
for
what I
growth?
heard, yeah. That's good.
Just wanted to give you a little kudos
Thank you,
there,
Tara.
all of Arizona. So, anyways, okay.
Sanford Educational Opportunities
That's what I heard. Your project, yes.
Project. Okay, thanks.
You can use that in your marketing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Always looking for it.
Anything else on enrollment?
Thanks for the great discussion.
All right. The next discussion item is to, if you'll recall at our retreat, we discussed our policy that says if you wish to speak to the board, you have to notify us by 5 o'clock. And the change.
We got one more presentation.
Oh.
But you can finish this and then we can.
All right, the change
We can jump back.
that we are making is to require that they turn in their request by the beginning of the study voting items. And the reason we decided we wanted to do that is that we are trying to bring our policy in line with our practice, because that's what we've been doing lately to make sure that we give people an opportunity to speak who want to. So this is the first reading on that policy. So,
And an outcome of our board retreat?
yes.
Do we actually have to read it, or you just gave it to us, right? I mean, I read it.
Yeah. Nope, I mean, it's just there for your information. It'll come back next month
Yeah.
for voting.
Okay.
This is the first. So.
Oh, and then the last presentation was future schools, just another
Oh, yes.
5 minutes of Joe Howard droning on and on.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
But you made
Sorry
it, so
about
we have to watch it.
I tried to make it quick.
Hello. At our August 27th board retreat, the board had discussion about several questions in the community and some opportunities with land and different ideas for our future of our PUSD school locations and buildings and capital accounts. And since at that time, the board asked me as the superintendent and our administration to look into some of those questions and then from time to time report out on where we've gone with that and what we've learned. So just a little background on that. You know, over the years, several entities have raised questions about how the Mile High Middle School property could be used for economic development opportunities in our community. It's a rare open space in downtown Prescott, and the community currently uses this for multiple entertainment events through our school district. It's really at the heart of the Granite Creek corridor, which has been studied a lot lately in terms of how it can be used for economic development for our community. And the idea would be that current middle school students could move to the existing Prescott High School if a new high school is built. So in terms of the action that's been taken around this topic, for many years, and specifically the past few years, there have been exploratory meetings with interested parties such as city officials, and Pusd board members have gotten together with different folks who've been involved in development and that type of thing to talk about things that could happen at the Mile High location. And lots of times a convention center is brought up, and definitely the boon that this would be for our community and economic development is always a piece of that discussion. We've also had a continued discussion with the James Family Trust regarding properties in the Deep Well Ranch area that would be suitable for an innovative, comprehensive high school. The James family is a very generous community partner to everyone in the community, and we've always had that conversation, but they approached us about 5 years ago about possibly building a school there, or maybe a high school at the
it's not to build the design for the new school yet. It's to have a conceptual design, talk to community members about what we want, put a price to it, and then say to the community, when do you want to talk about this? The next date for me in this was November 2022. And the board would have to call that question in June. And I think, what I've come to is pulling a committee together and bringing up this conceptual before June, and then asking the board to think about a big, huge bond is not good timing. So I don't think 2022 is a great idea for this. So we're slowing it down. This is my recommendation. I would like to get a committee together and dream about what a high school might look like, so we have something to play with here and we can get some numbers and things like that. The other thing that I'm going to recommend that we start thinking and talking about, maybe it's a retreat discussion, is let's get Mile High on the ballot and ask voters, do you want to sell this? Now, our experience has been when you ask our voters if they want to sell a building, they overwhelmingly say yes. That may or may not happen. Now, for instance, this building, then the board, when we did the last round, it was Dexter, this one, district office, and then we invited the community, and the board talked to the community, and the board and the community kind of decided together, don't even touch Washington School. Leave that one alone. Miller Valley didn't make it through that. I'm sorry to those who loved it, me included. And so that's a community discussion. So we may think about calling the voters and saying, do you want to sell Mile High? We've talked a lot with the city. Clark and I met with some folks from the city. This is a community discussion. So in my mind, it shouldn't necessarily be us begging for a high school, because we're in pretty good shape right now. Our high school's working for us. Mile High's working for us. But we've got this opportunity where there's some land offered to us. So we should be having this discussion. But is this the right word for it? The impetus of this has got to be people saying, we want Mile High for this community. Now, we all may have different feelings about that. I used to be the principal and a student there, and I have mixed feelings about Mile High going away. But I also understand the needs of this community, and that could be a huge economic boon for downtown if people want to do that. But it's going to have to be this huge conversation about, do you want to do that with Mile High? What's it going to look like? I think that conversation is going to have to start organically, maybe not from us, but from people who want to develop that part of downtown. Meanwhile, we're considering that we have some property and what a high school might look like in case that happens. And so while I don't think or recommend that we should ask for a whole bunch of money for a new high school in 2022, that might happen in 2024. We try to go even years because forest fees in the county helps offset election fees. We have gone odd years when the timing's right, but I just think this is something that, I was moving fast on this because I heard like, hey, figure this out. And I'm like, oh man, we got to get there by the 22nd. And my good friends on the district admin team were like, slow down, buddy. This has got to line up in terms of what the community needs, not us pushing a high school concept. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We're going to go visit a school. I think Andy might join us. We're going to visit a couple on the way down to ASBA next Wednesday in our kind of search to talk to the architects. The thing about the architects is they have strategic processes and people to lead them in the community rather than us grassrooting it and guessing how to do that. So I'm very interested in, I think that's something worth us investing a little bit in to kind of see where we're at and then report back to the board. This is what the community thinks where we're at right now, including that Yavapai College piece. So it's a complex topic. I suppose I've been talking about it in my career for about 15 years, on and off. And I guess we'll all talk about it together and sort of see where it goes. But that's kind of how I'm feeling about it, and I'm open to direction.
Is the vote on Mile High, you said in there, once that occurs, that is good forever,
yeah.
Right? So just the question of if the opportunity presented itself, would you approve the sale of Mile High? That could happen anytime.
Yep.
That could happen in November. It could happen November 2024.
Any election.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's not
and
a
that
binding...
the board decides that.
Okay.
The board decides when we go to the voters.
Okay.
And just an example, this building could be sold anytime now.
Right.
Because in 2015 or something, maybe 2014, it was approved.
Okay. But that's, oh, so we would just be asking for the permission to do that at whatever point
Yep.
the new high school is a reality.
And there's a part of me that says, okay, well, let's ask the voters. Maybe that'll get the conversation going.
Yeah.
And ultimately, they're either going to say, yeah, let's do it, or no way. And so then, as stewards, we will do what they tell us.
Is there any pressure on the timeline in terms of the land offer with the James Family Trust?
James family, there's just such generous, thoughtful folks. Like I said, 5 or 7 years ago, they brought this to us. And they have, that's why I brought it to y'all, because recently they've said, you know, we could sell it. I mean, it's really nice property out there, and they've showed us some different options out there. But I won't speak for them, but I think they'd like to see that kind of development out there in the community grow family-wise that direction too. And it does make sense in the future.
But there's no like deadline with that.
No.
Right now.
There could be though, but they were very generous with us and just saying, just let us know where you're at. And I think that's what we're doing.
Is it a big enough property to have a new middle school, high school, too?
It's a little smaller than architects would like for a high school our size.
Oh, okay.
But, there's lots of options you can build up. And I think that's the fun part, is bringing the community in. It's like when we closed schools and restructured. It wasn't our idea. It wasn't a board's idea. It was community's idea coming in. And
I mean, the poor middle schoolers, or the poor Mile High, they go from the old school to the old school that still has problems, That's not
yeah,
nice.
Prescott High School is in pretty good shape these days.
But that field.
Prescott High School had a bad reputation, but we put a multi-million-dollar roof on it, and that gym is, we visited some brand new schools and said, our gym is cooler.
Yeah.
I know that's not good English, but it is cooler. And we felt the same way about our field, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but I get excited thinking about moving a middle school to current Prescott High School, because there's options of moving our service center there. There's options of moving almost everything in the district there and then selling other property, like the service center. Or even doing something different with this. But, you talk to Stacy Williams, she'd like to take this building over for a preschool and she'd fill it.
We don't have an idea on the value of the Mile High property right now.
No, I'll give you a guess, not in public, but
Okay.
it's a total guess. And
Yeah.
that's another thing we could think about as a board, is doing an appraisal.
Yeah.
But that's not gonna be cheap.
Yeah.
But, I mean, at some point, we're gonna have to do that.
And it's probably not gonna cover the cost of a new facility.
Oh, no.
No,
Okay.
no, but we have some,
Yeah.
we have been sitting on money from building sales from the past for that purpose, so that we can show the voters that we've done multiple things. So,
Okay.
there's a couple $1 million sitting there. We'll use it for emergency type
Right.
things, but
Right.
we've got a pretty nice effort to put out there to say, look at what we're doing with this. And we've been really thoughtful about that over the years.
Okay.
Other comments? Okay. We're about at the end here. Just, well, first of all, are there any future agenda items? Okay. Reminders, next week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, is the annual ASBA conference. Then in January, we have a board meeting, not until January 11th. So note that we aren't meeting on the 4th. So, and then we will have a retreat in January, though the date has not been set yet. And as we discussed at our retreat the last time, we will be inviting the Humboldt board to join us to discuss items of mutual interest. So, anyway.
Sarah will be getting in touch with you all in the next couple days on what dates work for you for
Okay.
probably a later January.
All right. Otherwise, I wish you all a very happy, safe, healthy holiday season. And we will see you after the break. We are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.